What's up, card fighters? Ryan here from Vanguard Central. Today we're going to be breaking down 7 Cs. Stay tuned.
Stand up! Vanguard!
So welcome back, guys, to another episode of Cardfighters Network. Like I just said, we are going to be talking about 7 Cs, and we're going to be figuring out why this deck is actually so good and become a prominent deck in the meta. 7 Cs actually has been kind of like the best build for Grand Blue, besides Nitros, but the fact that 7 Cs has so much speed is just crazy. It's weird. So 7 Cs is a really great deck because it's able to do a lot of things according to its playstyle, where it can be a tanky aggressive kind of thing, where it can swing for big numbers, and it can also keep your opponents in check while with the Skeleton Cannoneer card. The reason being is that you're playing such an aggro control deck, and it's kind of hard to play against it just because you can't kill their resources, simply because their units will die and they get free hollow effect. Because Chaos Breaker can lock open rearguard circles and then also lock occupied ones, so it's kind of hard to play around that, especially with Grand Blue, where it kind of like messes up your board. So as long as you don't play against Chaos, you're pretty much set. So right here they have Night Mist, Lord of the Seven Seas. It's the break ride, which is crazy because there's a lot of combos you can do with this, especially with the other grade 3 Pledgeton, because Pledgeton does give you a superior break ride play where you can just get like full field for literally nothing. For grade 2's Rune Shade is an excellent choice just because it provides a lot of rushing and it can feel your drop zone right away, which is kind of like one of the weaknesses that 7 Cs does have, just because if they're not able to fill the drop zone at least before the first stride or anything like that, where they don't have to rely on Obadiah, then it's going to be pretty hard for them to play. So if you can, hopefully if you're playing against this deck and they're not able to open up the way they want to and they can't mill as fast as they can, then it's good for you. But if you're the Grand Blue player, it's going to be a rough game. Negrook is honestly one of the best cards in this deck. It's kind of like the tanky hitter, like what I mentioned earlier, where Grand Blue is able to play aggressive while also controlling your opponent's board, and then also keep maintaining hand advantage. So this is ridiculous because Negrook is a great card where it's a resource that you're never going to run out of, and it's always going to swing for 16 because you're going to be hollowing it all the time, and then it'll die. I think the only matchups you have if will be bad is against like Narukami or G-Narukami's, because they bind everything, but other than that, you got a pretty solid game against every deck. Oh, and Chaos. Cannoneer is just the best, kind of. He's like a 2-of, because you don't want to see him all the time, but the fact that he's able to be reused all the time, since he is a hollow card, so you're never going to lose him unless you're playing against Chaos or G-Narus. He's able to kill any pesky unit that you want, and then also maintaining hand advantage on top of that. And it's at a mere Counterblast 1, which is nothing because you get neat sweet unflips with Grenache in this deck. Slash Shade is another card that I kind of undermined before, but he's honestly one of the best cards in this deck. It provides a lot of cheap multi-attacks. You get extra 5k shield, excuse me. So if you retire like one of grade 1, you get an extra interceptor on the board, which is great because you get extra shield at the cost of 1 Counterblast, and it's not really anything. You're able to kill the units that you want dead on the board also. So that's pretty neat. For 7 Cs, to be honest, I think that Cutlass by far is more superior than Sea Strolling Banshee. Yeah, it's 1 Soul Blast for Sea Strolling and it is 6k power. It literally doesn't make a difference because Cutlass you can play right away. It's way more quicker than Banshee. And Banshee, in order to revive her, either requires a Counterblast or something. And you don't want to be depending on Grenache because Grenache is going to kind of bait you into making weak plays, if that makes sense. Because you would want to call like a Negrook and a Grenache instead of 2 Negrooks or a Negrook and a Mick the Ghosty, where you can give plus 10k to it. So it's kind of weak, I guess. I don't see why you would want to play Sea Strolling Banshee, at least in a 7 Cs deck. In a Nitros deck, it's a great card, but in in 7 Cs, the Cutlass variant is by far more superior. At least I think so. Turn 1, turn 2 in Cutlass is the best because you get to feel your drop zone right away, and if say you have your Rune Shade on the board, that's 4 cards in your drop before you get to grade 3, and that's amazing. Nightcrow is another great card because it lets you kill anything. It doesn't have to be 1 or greater or 1 or less, anything like that. Let's say you haven't killed your starter if you're playing Grenache, or let's say you have something that you want to die on the board, you can just fix columns, and this card is just free. It's ridiculous, and it's awesome because you can play it as like 1-of or 2-of, because as long as it's in the drop zone, it's not going to go away. Unless you're playing G-Narus or Chaos. Love by the 7 Seas Night Mist is ridiculous. I don't see why people didn't stock up on this before, just because it's so cheap. For a mere cost of Counterblast 1, you get to call 2 rear guards. And the fact that you're able to call 2 Negro Rooks, 2 16k hitters by themselves, is ridiculous. It's so cheap. It's Counterblast 1, you get to spear call 2 units, they die at the end of turn, but it doesn't matter because you're going to be calling hollowed units anyways. This card is honestly super overpowered. It makes you have consistent plays, and it's an easy one counterblast that doesn't have to unflip another copy. The grade 4 Nitros is a great finisher in my opinion. It's just not amazing. It doesn't gain a crit or anything like that, but it lets you enable multi-attack plays where you can call a full column, and usually you can call like a super Negro Rook and make the ghosty. So it's pretty neat where you can make pretty big push plays. That's why I like Nitros, because it's not really, you don't need to play 4 of it. You can play 2, so it's easy on your budget also. Obadiah is a card that is great. In the 7 Seas deck, I don't really love it as much as I do in a Nitros deck, just because you can only call like a ghosty. But with Obadiah, if you're needing to go into him, it's not too horrible, because if you're able to stall out a little bit longer, at least one extra turn, then as long as you don't get too far behind, because then you'll be able to set up your Night Rose plays, or I'm sorry, Night Mist plays, because you get the cards that you want in the drop zone. So if you're able to stall a little bit, you can go ahead and go into Obadiah and get a free no guard from your opponent, kind of. By far, 7 Seas has been one of the decks that have been coming out of nowhere, kind of. People knew that Grand Blue was pretty hyped just because it was getting support, but no one knew that it was actually going to be this good. So some tournament results that were in Japan, it was top 3 in Japanese tournaments over the past 1 and 2 months, which is crazy because that's super true. Ever since the G-BT06 came out, they've been prominent. 7 Seas have been first place, second place, third place, or top 8. They're like guaranteed top 8. And then also at the recent Kanto VGCS 5-man team tourney, almost every single thing had 7 Seas and no seal. I was like, what the heck? Yeah, it's been consistently topping, and it's been a deck that proved why it has been. So anyways, guys, that was it for today's episode. Let us know what you think about 7 Seas. Do you think that it's a really great deck? Do you think that there's a reason why it's prominent? Is it actually bad and people just don't know how to play against it? You never know. No one knows. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like our videos and comment down below if you have any questions, and subscribe for more content. Vanguard Central.